We have two speakers tonight. First, we'll hear from my husband, Dan Sutton, who is a longtime Lower Merion resident, climate activist, and as Stacy put, an all-around wonderful person. I'll attest to that. Some of you may have attended Dan and my Project Drawdown presentations back in 2019 and 2020. Dan recently joined the Lower Merion EAC in April and has said he's been very involved in our community as a soccer coach on the Lower Merion soccer board, as well as a referee. And tonight he's going to give a context for the impact of bulk waste on climate change and a bit of an update on the status of bulk waste processes in Lower Merion. And then we're going to turn to Kimberly Bizak, who most of you know, a Narberth resident who has been contributing in many ways to a sustainable community. She created the Narberth Cycling Club in 2017 as an avid bicycle advocate, promoting bicycles as sustainable transportation alternative. She is a former president of the Narberth Civic Association and currently is the co-owner of Shift Sustainable Goods and Services, which is a women-owned business that offers eco-conscious goods and services focused on low impact living, which we're going to hear a lot about tonight. And I welcome them both. I'm going to post a resource list in the chat before we end tonight, so don't copiously take notes, because a lot of that information will be in there. I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who's going to share his screen and begin the program.
Okay. All right. So good evening and welcome to an evening of waste. I am a member of Lower Merion's Environmental Advisory Council and have had an opportunity to study what's happening with waste management within our township. I am not speaking on behalf of the township. I'm speaking as an individual with some knowledge to share. So I will do my best to share that with you, the current facts on what Lower Merion waste management is up to. If there are any questions that I cannot answer, I'll be happy to take your contact information so that I can do some research and get back to you. I first became involved with climate change by providing a seminar on Project Drawdown. Project Drawdown produced the 100 solutions that existed in 2017. Solutions that for us would stabilize climate change. So I'm going to start today with a little information from Project Drawdown, which is still one of my favorite research sources. I believe we must achieve net zero production of greenhouse gases. So this statement shows that individuals and households need to take part in greenhouse gas reduction. And today we're focusing just on what is waste management. So this is a chart provided by Project Drawdown to show the 20 high-impact climate actions for households and individuals. If we break that 25 to 30% estimate down into finer residential sources, we can see that general waste and food combines to be about 13.7%. The sort of histogram that shows there on the chart is irrelevant. It's just space to put the components of each of the four categories. For example, if we look at food, food contributes waste from what we've produced, because 1/3 of the produced food is wasted. It never makes it to a fork, never gets to our mouths. The second area where greenhouse gas is produced is in the area of producing meat products. So if every American ate a plant-rich diet all the time, we'd eliminate 102.2 gigatons of carbon dioxide. Now that's an absurd example and target, but it does show what we as residents of this country need to do. And I do want to encourage us to move towards a plant-rich diet. I expect Kim will be talking more about actions such as this that we can take as individuals. So I'll get back on track with Lower Merion. Our township has completed more than this with respect to greenhouse gas reduction. Yet I've limited this list to our topic tonight, waste management. I'm going to talk about the waste fee restructuring later. Note that our sustainability manager is less than a year in the job. And once we get the sustainability plan development into full swing, they're going to be involving many people from local businesses and residences looking for your opinions, feedback, and innovative ideas. Our sustainability manager and CFO, Chief Financial Officer of the township, completed a very detailed analysis of bulk waste disposal, comparing waste to energy versus the landfill process. Lower Merion just signed another contract with Covanta to do the waste to energy, and the cost per ton is going to be increasing every year for the next 5 years. You can see that the current cost is $72 a ton and going up. However, yes,
Did they enter into a 5-year contract?
yes. So there will be no fee increase for residents in 2022. That's good news for us. This analysis from Virginia shows that waste to energy, incineration of our waste and the production of electricity, the green image on this chart, has a lower impact on our environment than shipping the bulk waste to landfills which are outside of the township. So besides being the most cost-effective, waste to energy process turns out to be the best environmental option. That said, our township is discussing how they can ensure that our waste doesn't cause hardship for the people subject to the exhaust from the Covanta plant in Plymouth Meeting. The environmental agencies have maximum content limits imposed, such as sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide, yet there are always accidents. So we're quite interested in monitoring that. This chart shows the amount of waste produced by our residents annually and the cost paid. If you can see that pale blue line jogging up and down between 17,000 and 19,000 tons, it's relatively stable. So that's what's happening over the past, 14 years, 15 years on the chart. However, the bars show annual cost, and even though our costs have diminished from 2007 to 2016, you saw before that they're going to be on the rise again. Now the costs aren't just what we pay for the bulk waste to go to Covanta. There's income as well. So let's talk first about the fee. That's the past history of what our waste fee has been for individual residents. The last two columns are the new simplified structure. It just makes it easier for us to choose what we're going to do. Financially, the township uses a single fund to manage both the income and the expenses for waste management and recycling. In general, our residents have been lowering their subscription costs, selecting fewer containers and less rear yard pickup. So paragraph 2 shows the impact of those subscription selections between 2020 and 2021. So you can see 384 residences chose to become standard customers with only 1 to 2 cans. And we lost 620 from the enhanced customers with 3 to 4 cans. And there's fewer people choosing rear yard pickup and choosing to bring it to the curb themselves. The last paragraph explains this factor in determining the size of the solid waste fee. As people actually produce less and choose smaller amounts to put out, which is goodness, we have to raise the fee to cover it. So it's touch and go. We currently have 17,000 residential customers. That's households to pick up from. So in talking about recycling, our collection is divided into 2 streams. Paper and cardboard, which they actually keep separate at the refuse transfer center, and then the commingled pickup. Now our contract is with J.P. Mascaro and Sons, and you can note that residents can bring metal and white goods to the Kugel complex, which is the transfer station, and from there other residents select refuse, gets reused, repurposed, or it goes to a recycling system. Now, I'm not going to compare our recycling separation to others who have single stream, but it is a fact that the costs for us doing 2 streams is cheaper than having those single stream processes, because there's a lot of sorting that has to be hired when you just do single stream. So we residents are achieving a cost reduction, yet we're doing the separation ourselves. This chart shows cost and revenue per ton. The red line is the cost per ton for bulk waste. You can see that's relatively stable. The blue line is cost per ton for commingled recycling, and it's been hugely variable over the past years. That first year back there is 2014, is where it starts. The good news is that the green line, our recycling paper and cardboard, still provides us with an income of somewhere around $80 to $100 per ton of paper. We have a contract, now this is special and unique, with Philadelphia to treat our sewage. Philadelphia's process, sewage treatment, is one of the most optimal in the country. They capture and sell the methane, and they provide compost from the solid waste. If by chance you can't or don't do your own composting of your kitchen waste, please use your garbage disposal. That reduces our contribution to bulk waste and makes it very profitable for Philadelphia to some extent. I don't even know what. So there are 2 special categories of waste that get supported twice a year, when residents can bring anything with a plug, meaning something electrical, and hazardous waste to the transfer station for special handling and disposal. So, active projects. The SALDO is the collection of ordinances that governs how structures are built, what transportation support is required, such as parking, and in our near future, maybe even the number of electrical vehicle charging stations they have to have. That is under rewrite at this point in time. And I'm going to mention the sustainability plan again, because all stakeholders are going to have an opportunity to support and lobby for your favorite waste management sustainability improvements. I want you to know that. Our EAC has recommended 3 opportunities that are currently being considered by the Board of Commissioners. So you can note these 3. That ends Lower Merion. So these 2 charts are just a simple comparison. It's really hard to link it to nationally, but it is the breakdown for the country. So you can see on the left that containers and packaging is one of the largest components. And we can assume pretty reliably that those containers and packaging are generally single-use items. The right-hand display shows garbage handling, and Lower Merion does negligible amount of the landfill, if any, which is about 50% of waste management. So our circle would be quite different than the national picture. If you're interested in following communications on waste management or any other sustainability about Lower Merion, you can follow on Instagram or on Facebook.
I might just add that Climate Action Lower Merion has a website and Facebook page as well.
Yes, as does CAN, Facebook page.
The links to both CAN and COM's websites are in the document that I'm going to put in a link to in the chat before we go. And I'll probably send it out to everybody else who wasn't able to be here tonight who registered. Hi, Anna. Thank you for joining us.
Sorry, I came on a bit late.
I just have to say, Anna, that was a lovely tribute to you yesterday. Very nice.
Thanks.
Okay, Dan, you are complete?
I'm complete.
All right, well, then we're going to turn this over to Kimberly Basak.
All right, thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My business partner, Alicia, is on this call. Let me go ahead and share my screen so we can get going with the presentation. All right. So we were happy for Colin and Can to invite us to come speak tonight. It's nice to be thought of as a bit of an expert in terms of low impact lifestyle, which is also known as zero waste. It's not, zero waste is not particularly a term that we embrace because that's just an aspirational goal. And low impact has become like the phrase that I've gotten very comfortable using as far as the lifestyle that my household practices. So tonight's session, we're just going to highlight a little bit about how I got started on this path. Then we'll talk about what's known as the 5 R's, which are the key concepts of low impact living. We'll discuss some simple shifts and challenges that are often associated with the pursuit of this lifestyle. I'll talk about 5 action items that you can start thinking about today to get started on your journey or to boost it, and then we'll have some time for questions. So in 2013, early 2014, I was living in Washington, D.C. with a 1-year-old, and my life was very chaotic. I was trying to really embrace like a clean and green lifestyle. And one day I was at a mom's group, and a friend of mine mentioned this book written by her friend, Bea Johnson. She had just read it, and she said it just spoke to her so much, and she knew it was something I needed to read. So on the way home from that play group, I stopped at the Washington, D.C. library, and they happened to have a copy. And in 2 days, I read the whole book. It was just such an aha moment for me. And it really did help get us started on this journey. So I have 7 years later, but now it's almost 8 years later. Our family has very slowly gotten to the point where we only take our trash out once a year. So 1 trash bag a year for my house, my husband and I, and our 2 daughters. So let's just talk a little bit about some ways that we got where we are today. So the key concepts of zero waste or low impact living really focus on what are known as the 5 R's. And the 5 R's go in a very specific order, which I'll really keep emphasizing. So before I learned about Zero Waste Home and read that book, I was a rock star recycler. I thought I've just got this in the bag. Recycling is my thing. I felt so good about myself. And then I read this book and I was like, oh, wait, I'm doing it all wrong. This is not the way that the puzzle pieces fit together. So the 5 R's in the order that I now embrace is refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, rot. So let's talk about each of those in a little more detail. So refuse. Refuse is the very first step that I ask myself anytime I have waste trying to come into my household. So a few ways I've learned to just keep the trash out of my household to begin with is I opted out for junk mail. There's a link on the online resource that Nancy's going to put in the chat where you can go and just, it's one database that helps you opt out of junk mail. The other way that I started refusing, and I've really worked on teaching this to my daughters too, is just like going out to events. People are always trying to give you little plastic junky trinkets and freebies and giveaways. We try to refuse that because it comes into your house and it breaks, or 2 seconds later you're over it, and then you have to find something to do with it. And most of the time it's not something that you can recycle. Again, like this is more common now, right? But like going out to the restaurant, refusing the straw, bringing your own container when you go out to eat so you can put your leftovers in it, refusing the plastic shopping bags. All of those are ways to just refuse the trash to begin with. The next step to the 5 R's is reduce. So some examples on how to reduce. If you, like simple shifts around your home, you can pivot from fossil fuel to a renewable energy supplier. And I thought it was great at the beginning when we were talking a little bit earlier before this started. Ruth was talking about pivoting to solar soon, which is really exciting. Even going through PICO and pivoting to just a renewable energy supplier with PICO is a really simple thing. And I know CAN and Calm have really great resources on their sites on how to do that. Another way to reduce is just when you go to the shopping store, you know, if you have a choice to buy your produce if you have a choice to buy your apples in the plastic bag or buy them naked, or bring your bags and put them in your cloth bags. If you have an opportunity to join your local CSA or go to the farmer's market, I bike once a week to the Ardmore Farmers Market, and I do get some of my produce there to supplement my week. Reducing food waste, you know, you could donate if you have food that you know you're not going to use and it's going to go bad, giving it away on your local Buy Nothing group, donating it to the food bank, or the Cooperative Gardens has their Grow Narberth initiative. Those are just some ways to focus on reducing. So when you can't refuse it and you can't reduce it, the next thing that you need to be asking yourself is, can I okay, here's a little bit about reduce, apologies. So I'll talk about this a little bit more because the pictures do help. So when I go to the grocery store, I have what I call my go bag, and it is hanging right by the door, ready to go every week. So on Mondays, I grab my little bag. It has produce bags. It has a couple of jars. It has some food wraps. And I take that with me to the grocery or the farmer's market. And even despite the pandemic, I'm still having success, like going to the Bruno counter, and they'll put my cheese or something like that into my container for me. I'm still having success with that. And again, Mom's Market has still been a really great resource for me, and Weaver's Way to buy things in bulk containers or not packaged. This talks a little bit about tear if you're not familiar with it. When I bring my jars, I put them empty on the scale. It tells me the empty weight. I record that on the top and then fill it with my contents. And when I get to the register, they can deduct the weight of the jar to only charge me for the contents of what's in the jar or in the bag. You know, now that I'm parenting my daughters and they're getting into school age, it's kind of added another layer to our low impact journey. So I've really fallen into the habit of finding some favorite snacks because, you know, when you're in a rush with your everyday life, you just kind of want to grab something in a little baggie and go. So these are some examples of some snacks that we keep on hand in our house and you put into lunch boxes or throw into my bag for on the go, just to avoid in the rush of on the go life or work life, you know, going to the cafeteria or the corner store and grabbing something packaged. And again, traveling is so, I mean, if there's one place where I just see so much trash, it makes me nauseous. It's when I'm traveling, when I go to the airport or the train station or those places. Again, you're in a rush and you just need things quickly. I've just learned to, you know, plan ahead. I bake whatever, a batch of muffins or a batch of breakfast cookies to bring along with us. I buy bananas. I go to the bulk bins. I fill them with nuts and trail mix and that kind of thing. And then we have a whole like assortment of things when we travel and we're not falling into the trap of having to buy packaged goods. So reducing. Some ideas for around the house, some simple swaps that I started with really were my personal care items. So as I started to run out of things in my house, I would pivot to the sustainable option. So I used up all of my disposable razors because using what you have, right, is better ultimately than just throwing in the trash. So I used up all my disposables. I pivoted to a pivoting type of safety razor called a leaf. I ran out of cotton balls, which are normally treated with a lot of pesticides. I pivoted to some reusable cotton cloths. These are just some examples of some early swaps that I made that just made such a difference with what I was throwing into the trash can on a weekly basis. Okay, so on to reuse, repurpose, repair. So like I was saying earlier, you know, if you can't refuse it and you can't reduce it, then the next step is you need to ask yourself, how can I reuse this or repurpose this? And that's really, or repair it. And for me, that's really where our local Buy Nothing group has just been such an amazing resource for our community. So when I get to a point where something's come into my household and I don't have a use for it anymore, I offer it up on Buy Nothing. And most of the time there's someone out there that wants it. So that's really exciting. And also, I really try to avoid buying new. So before I get to the decision of buying, I go on the Buy Nothing group. I ask, you know, even something as simple as this year, my daughter needed a ruler for her school backpack. I went on Buy Nothing. A lady's like, I actually have 12 rulers, which is embarrassing to admit, but I'd love to gift one to you. So I got one on Buy Nothing. And again, it's just like giving life to these items that are sitting around your house and keeping them out of the landfill. I also practice, you know, going to Twice as Nice for the kids' clothing, which has really great secondhand. But Remark Glass is just an example of an organization in Philadelphia that takes glass, local glass from the community. They reshape it into new glass pieces. And then they sell it to restaurants for barware or households, you know, glass products like that, vases, plates. And Shift actually has developed a partnership with Remark Glass's nonprofit arm, which is called Bottle Underground. So we recently launched this program in Narberth, where we're collecting glass from the community, thanks to some cooperation from Narberth and their EAC. We collect the glass, which keeps it out of the landfill, out of the recycling curbside. And once a week, we bring it down to Bottle Underground, and they sort it and sanitize it and put it back out into the community. So again, we're not making new glass, we're reusing the glass, which is amazing, because a lot of people treat glass as a single-use container, even though it can be reused many, many times for many years. So again, it's just another way to work through those steps before we get to the fourth step, which is recycling. So now I couldn't refuse it, I couldn't reduce it, I couldn't reuse it. No one wants it, or it's irreparable. Then I'm at the point where I'm thinking about recycling it. So a little, just touching a little bit on the reality of recycling. Those slides that Dan showed earlier were so powerful to me, right? Seeing what is actually making it to our landfills and knowing how much doesn't even need to be going to the landfill in the first place, right? It's just about education and changing behaviors. But over here on the left side, I did find on the Lower Merion Township website, they have very great guidance on exactly what belongs in your curbside bin and what should not go in your curbside bin, which is really helpful because it doesn't take much to taint a load of recycling that's going to the refuse center, and then that has to get landfilled. So as far as in the don't recycle pile on that worksheet here, you got to keep in mind, like, it can't necessarily go in your curbside bin, but there are other opportunities in the community to make sure those items get recycled. It doesn't mean you have to put them in the trash bin. So, you know, for example, the egg cartons can be composted. The plastic bags and the plastic wrap, you can actually take those over to Giant, where they have a collection bin through a partnership with Trex. And all the stuff in the middle document on the screen are examples of items in addition to the plastic grocery bags that can be included in those collection bins. They take those items and they downcycle them into Trex decking. So there is an option for keeping that out of the landfill. And then I did talk a little bit about Shift's partnership with bottle underground to keep glass out of landfill. Montgomery County has a really great A to Z guide on their site, and I always go visit that because when I get to that point where I've got that piece of something in my hand, I ask myself, like, should I go check on Montgomery County's website and make sure there isn't a drop-off opportunity for this item? And most times there is. PAN is the Peace Advocacy Network. They have a partnership with Shift. They provide labels to community members who have hard to recycle items that are accepted by TerraCycle. So snack packaging is something we hear from our community all the time that has become really hard to avoid, especially with pandemic. So you can collect, and we regularly do offer these collections. You can collect your snack packaging, and instead of it going to a landfill, we fill boxes as much as we can. We get a label and we send it off to be recycled. And then Rabbit Recycling is a little newer to the scene. They're based in Philadelphia, and they are like a local version of what TerraCycle is doing. So they're trying to find recycling solutions for everything that can't go in your curbside bin. So they have a great guide on their website that talks about what they accept and what they don't. Okay, so when you work through these first 4 stages, the other thing you need to ask yourself, if I can't put this in the recycling bin, can it be rotted? Is this an item that is better off in the compost bin? So for options for rotting, if you don't home compost, I love that Dan highlighted the using the garbage disposal. I learned that a few years ago at a Narberth EAC event, and I thought this is such great information, because in Narberth we have a lot of tiny lots and lots of tiny houses, lots of apartment dwellers, and many of them don't have the means or they're intimidated about home composting. And so that is a ton of food waste going to our landfills, and giving them the option to put it down their garbage disposal, it's just such a gift of knowledge that a lot of people don't even understand the connection about. But if you don't have the garbage disposal, you're not interested, or you don't have access to home composting, you should know that there are composting curbside pickup services now in our community through Mother Compost is really well known now. And they offer the curbside service, but in addition to that, they've now are starting to partner with some community organizations. St. Paul's Lutheran in Ardmore is a recent example. So you pay $5 and you get to bring a 5-gallon bucket of compost to St. Paul's and then take an empty one back with you. So it's great community building. It's just another layer of service that they're offering to the community that might be more appealing for some folks than curbside, especially apartment dwellers. And again, it's just making composting more accessible in the community. So let's just talk a little bit about the few challenges that I often hear coming up when I talk to people out in the community. So one really big challenge is just finding that balance, right? So you read this book, it's your aha moment, all this new information coming at you. You kind of feel like you need to do it all at once. But I learned really, really early on, parenting 2 little ones and working and all the things, that it's just a recipe for burnout, right? So I just really started to try to focus on one thing a week, and I would work that off my list, or I would pay attention, like, what's in my trash bin? You know, what's the biggest culprit in my trash bin? And then spend the next month just like trying to work through how to reduce or eliminate that from my trash bin. Thinking of it as a marathon, right, and not a sprint. The other thing that I've had folks talk to me about is just like getting their partner or their household on board. I mean, luckily I've been really blessed. My husband has been incredibly supportive about us being on this journey. And my kids, you know, they were so little that I feel like they don't know any different, which makes them really great earth heroes going out into the world and like spreading their knowledge. But the biggest advice I give to people is just lead by example. You know, you focus on what you can control as an individual, and then it kind of rubs off on other people in your household. And you'll find your simple things, I think, to start implementing. But I mean, that's been my biggest success that I've heard from talking to people. And the other thing is time, research, and resources. I mean, luckily there's way more of a wealth of knowledge out there now than back in 2013 when I was just starting to learn about this. There were very few products out on the market. There was just very limited information out there about like really waste on a household level. But now the community, the Mainline Shift community, is a really great local resource. I have folks go there all the time and they just ask a question and they get so excited because 5 minutes later they have an answer. You know, it just takes a lot of that stress out of the equation. And then also with Shift, we are going to be in the new year pushing out an online local resource guide. So it's going to save you the time and the research. You can go there when you need to figure out, you know, where can I buy this sustainably, or where can I take old sneakers for reuse or recycling. You can go to Shift's online resource guide, which is going to be on our website, and find the answer. So again, our goal with this whole process of Shift has just been trying to make this so accessible and simple and approachable. Because in our busy lives, like that's just what we're going to need it to be, right? Okay, so some really simple, quick action items that are generally free, right? So it's great place to start. The first thing I tell people is you need to open your trash and look at what is in it. Like sometimes it might need digging through it and seeing what the culprits are. For me, that was so eye-opening. I opened my trash bin. I saw a ton of paper towels. That was like one of the first things that went out of our household. There's some things that are still in my trash can, right, that I can't avoid. So in our 1 year's worth of trash bag, there's a ton of produce stickers, which annoy the heck out of me, but sometimes they're just unavoidable. And I get a lot of like things that come home from school assignments or art projects or stuff like that end up in our trash bin. But yeah, you just looking in your trash bin is going to tell you where your household needs to start. The other thing that a friend recommended to me one time was like pinning a date on my trash can and tracking how long it takes for you to take out your next trash bag. And that simple, just tacking a note on there is so motivating. Like for my family, you know, 1 year they were like, oh my gosh, Mama, it has been 4 months since we took out our trash. And so like you go with your piece of trash and you're ready to put it in the trash can, you see that little sticky note or date and you're like, whoa, okay, let me think about this. Is this really the right place for this item in my hand? So the next thing, calculating your ecological footprint. So in the online document that Nancy's going to share, I have a link to a really fun eco calculator. It's just the way it's designed. It's so interactive and just it's a fun exercise. So if you've never calculated your ecological footprint before, I recommend going to the one that I have linked on the document.
Which one is it, Kim?
It is, let's see, the footprintcalculator.org is what this one is called, footprintcalculator.org. And again, it's it's just one that I really like. The toggles and just the way it's designed is really fun. The next thing, walking or biking local. Transportation emissions are a really big way that we can start to see some change in our community. And 33% of local trips are a mile or less. So just if you could even commit to one errand a week on foot or on a bike, if everyone was doing that, that cumulative effect would be really cool to see. And I mean, I am starting to see it more in Narberth with the Narberth Cycling Club, because we really do advocate for those local trips by bike or on foot. So yeah, just thinking about every time you get ready to go use the car, like, do I need to use the car for this, or could I just walk, or could I just ride my bike? We talked about switching to renewable energy. That was something, you know, when my household did it, our costs went down. So it was really exciting. We were like, whoa, too bad we didn't know about this sooner, because fossil, our price is higher, and now on renewables it's gone down. So there's savings there. And then the other thing is just sharing your successes, sharing your shifts. So this was actually a suggestion from Stacy with CAN. She asked if the mainline shift community, if we could make a photo album called Share Your Shifts. And it's just a place to go and show a photo of your daily successes. So, you know, the photo on the right was a friend of ours who took their stainless steel pint glass and their growler, and they went down to the Greeks and, you know, used their reusables for a happy hour. And then Stacy, she shared the photo on the left with the Brussels sprouts, you know, again, not putting the stalk in the trash, and she was done, she composted it. So I talked a little bit about the Shift Resource Guide, which is coming in the new year. And again, this just gives you a little sneak peek. You'll be able to go on and you'll be able to search by category, by guideline, by the name of the business. And when you click on it, it'll give you an idea of where it is in the area and a little blurb about exactly what sustainable services that business provides. So I just love this quote so much. If it can't be reduced, reused, repaired, rebuilt, refurbished, refinished, resold, recycled, or composted, then it needs to be restricted, redesigned, or removed. I just love that so much, right? All those R's in play there with a closed loop system. So if you want to stay connected, I mentioned the Mainline Shift community, which is a closed group on Facebook that anyone can join. And you can go there and ask your questions. There's lots of resources there. Shift's official business page is on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. Info@Mainline Shift if you want to email us with any questions. And then our website, mainlineshift.com, is going to be launching very soon. But if you go there, you can sign up for our newsletter for updates. And then just a little bit of update about Shift, which you've heard me mention many times. So we have, through all these talks that we've been giving in the community over the past few years, the biggest thing that we hear is like, this is really great and I want to get started, but I need a local option. I don't want 12 trucks coming to my house, because that's not a sustainable solution, right? I mean, progress, not perfection, I know, but 12 emission trucks coming to your house every day is not the answer. So we're really working hard, listening to the community, and we are popping up inside of American Family Market, which is in Narberth on Haverford Avenue in January. And you will be able to bring your own containers. You'll be able to get your laundry detergent. We'll have face cream, deodorant, all of these options in bulk. So you can buy them with your own container. And we'll also have other sustainable items like toothpaste tabs and scrub brushes and all your household supplies that are plastic free. They can be composted at the end of their life. So January 8th is our big pop-up launch of Shift. So hopefully you'll come down and say hi, bring your jars. And thank you for participating. Love this Anne Marie Bonneau quote. We don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions doing it imperfectly. All right, happy to take any questions.
Hi, this is Faye Kim.
Hi,
Can you
Faye.
hear? How are you?
Good.
Good. I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
And just a few things to add. I don't know if I mentioned to you in the past that I used to go up to Recycling Services Incorporated. I know I put it on Facebook, so you might have seen it in the page there. And since they've closed, I had like 3 full bags of wax containers. I have one kid who is lactose intolerant, and so we have to get lactate in wax containers. So I just want to give a plug for the Facebook page because I did find out that they are recycled. Well, I went online and saw they were recycled in Narberth, and one of the people from Mainline Shift on Facebook said, bring them over to my house and you can put them in my recycling container. So that was awesome. And styrofoam is also another great, that the Northeast, is it Northeast Styrofoam Recycling? So
Yeah.
another cool thing that I learned from you guys, because I also used to take my styrofoam up there. One question that I have,
Sure.
besides singing the praises of the Facebook page, somebody else is collecting medals that people get from their runs, their 5K runs, or their kids get. So that's another great plug. Anyway, so I've gone to Bottle Underground, and my question is, if I'm going to drink a beer, is it better to drink it in glass or in the can?
Okay, that's a good question. So my first suggestion would be, if you have a growler or a mini growlette, to bring that down to the Greeks next door and let them put keg beer in your growler. That would be the first best option. The next best option, yeah, I mean, glass or metal is always what I defer to, right? To avoid plastic if I can't get it naked. Because we have this local option for closing the loop on glass, I would be curious to hear if anyone else has a strong opinion about it, because we're collecting so much glass now that's now staying out of the waste stream, and it is being reshaped and sanitized and pushed back out into the community. And then the metal is infinitely recyclable. So yeah, that's a.
I have a comment, Kim, about that.
Sure.
My interest is, and this is not something I'm, I know for sure, but I believe that that recycling glass is substantially more energy intensive than recycling metal. So it's going to depend on, the total, you have to use very, very high temperatures. So you have a issue of the carbon associated with the heating of the glass. So the metals that I believe that the metals that are recycled at Mascaro are going fairly local, so they're not getting hauled, to some very distant smelter. So I would just suggest that maybe we want to dive a little deeper into that question and see if we can't answer it more with the whole carbon footprint in mind. And I think the township, Lower Marion Township recycling program is really, I think it's one of the best. So I think it would be useful for us to be able to share that information with folks. So
Yeah.
that it's a little more, refined analysis. And I think that's the kind of thing that we're going to be working on in our sustainability planning process in Lower Marion Township, so that we can just go to the next place for folks.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, I'm being reminded, like, the metal beer cans often are lined. They have a liner inside of them,
With plastic.
which does have a plastic component. So
Right.
really, having this local option with Bottle Underground, where they are sanitizing and putting the glass back out into the community so it can be reused over and over and over and not recycled, which does have a big emissions burden, or crushed and used as landfill cover, which
Right.
most of the glass in Narberth, certainly that's
Just
where
becomes
it's destined.
landfill cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we commingle in Narberth, so it gets crushed in the truck and it's all mixed together. You can't recycle glass unless it's sorted by color. So when it gets crushed in the truck, it
Right.
most often ends up being a landfill cover. So yeah, I would love if Calm does dig in deeper to that to hear more about it. But my gut's telling me the glass, but growler would be the
The
first.
growler. I was just gonna say the growler.
Can I ask one more question about the glass? If it's going to Bottle Underground and you're saying it's being sanitized and going back out, so is it going back out as the structure that it is, as a beer bottle? Is some of it going back out as wine bottles and beer bottles, like you would be doing in Massachusetts or Connecticut, where there's a bottle deposit?
So some of it, the answer is both. Some of it is maintaining its current shape and being put back into the community. There's a really great business called Vellum Soap, which takes a lot of the glass that is being collected by Bottle Underground, and they're putting bath salts and like really great products in it and putting that back out into the community. And then they encourage their customers to bring it back. But the other question, the other part to your question is, Remark Glass, which is the business side of Bottle Underground, does take some of the glass, they reshape it into different shapes of the glass, and then they push that back out into the community.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Other questions? Well, this was really great. I did put that link in the chat. And I put my email address in case for some reason you cannot open it. Please let me know. Does everybody know how to save the chat? 3 little dots at the bottom of the chat. And the very top of that pop-up says save chat. And it'll go into a file that is a Zoom file. And I highly recommend that you rename it so you know what it is.
Yeah, and if you're not tech savvy and didn't catch that, you're more than welcome to send us an email and we can send you the direct to the resource guide.
Yeah, and I'm going to send it out to, there were quite a few more people who registered, but this is a tough time of year. So I will send it out to everybody who registered. So we get more people living a low impact life.
Let's post it on the webpage too, Nancy.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Kim, thank you for all the work
So
you're
much.
doing, and for I know you put an endless amount of energy into this, and it's really inspiring. I really appreciate the way you approach this, and I think you're making a difference, and I know it's hard, so I think it's really terrific that you're doing this. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Every shift counts, right? So if we all start
Right.
doing one thing a week, the
And I
cumulative
just
effect is
love the name
amazing.
of Shift and your logo and the idea of the bicycling and the shift and I love it. It's a great name.
Well, Alicia gets all the credit for the branding and the logo. It's amazing. I agree. And yeah, come see us. January, we'll be popping up. We'll be there for at least 2 months while we're looking for a forever home in Narber. So local access to all those products that for my household, we struggled for a long time finding. So it really will help you get going with your journey. And we're happy to answer any questions. So reach out.
Good luck with it. I'll be there. I'll be a customer.
Thanks. Yeah, ride your bike.
I
Even
can walk.
better.
I'll walk.
Or walk. Yeah.
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 Really great job, Kim and Dan. Thank you so much for valuable information. I have spent hours on the internet looking for things. Now I have only one place I have to look for things. So this is wonderful. Really, thank you. And thank you everybody for being here. And we intend to do these neighbor to neighbor programs once a month. So keep your eyes out. Please share them with your friends, family, and neighbors. I
Yes,
do
she
send
has,
out.
excuse me, Nancy, she's dropped off, but the cover girl is our next speaker.
Oh, that's right.
Detweiler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Michelle Detweiler will be speaking in January. We don't have an exact date yet, but keep a lookout for that. It's going to be about making your garden an appropriate native garden, and maybe she'll share some things about rain gardens too. So with that, I wish everybody, we all do, good holidays, and let 2022 be the year of low impact as well as good vibes. Thank you all.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
I thought I'd change my background based on the topic.
Did you stop recording, Nancy? Okay.